Hey everyone, time for a weekly update. Now I know I hadn't posted last week and I'm doing more streams in my community and maybe once in a while I'll post those streams on YouTube the day after. Obviously my community will get the stream beforehand, but I'll post it so you guys can see what we talked about, what is discussed when I go over coins, and then I'll be putting out less and less videos. I'm not going to be focusing on YouTube as much. I'll post them, here and there, maybe every other week. If I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll make 2 videos in a week. We'll see. But this one's going to be a little bit longer than usual. I'll be going over my full, in-depth process of what I think the market is, and how the market's going to go for Bitcoin, and obviously my analysis on a few coins that I'm looking at, and what I expect to happen over the course of the next few weeks. Now, this isn't a Bitcoin dedicated video. This is a little bit of both. So yes, I could split this up into two. I'm not going to. So, pick up your phones, text your boyfriend, text your girlfriend good night, tell your wife that you're spending the rest of the afternoon, morning, or night, wherever it is for you with me. Um, and we will jump right into it. So, if random topic, if anyone has a outlet to Gavin Newsom and his social media team, I would love to apply for it and bash on Trump. Just got to put it out there. So if anyone has a contact, let me know. Off topic, I know, fuck Trump. All right, let's jump into it. So what we discussed a few days ago and what I have been posting on YouTube is the loss of this 120K area. Now, this was a plan that I had drawn in one of my streams, in my Discord, but we lost this. I was looking for a retest of this 120 to confirm this down. Now, a lot of coins have lost their support. A lot of coins have lost their structure on a lower time frame. Macro wise, we are still in a high time frame, but let me just digest what this means on a lower time frame for Bitcoin. So, actually, let's keep this line. So you see this little uptrend. This was a range that we were in. Here's the highs, here's the lows, right? And then we had this little accumulation. Obviously, we went down. Here is the true range low. We had a deviation. Right? Broke out, retested it. Like I say in all my videos, you're looking for that confirmation of a flip to get in. There it was. All you had to do, be patient. Yes, you would have missed. If you follow my demand zone, you would have caught this Pico bottom long, right? Let's say you missed 112 to 115. Well, you got the confirmation of a long there, all right? Now back to range highs. We took out the highs, made new all-time highs, and then eventually dumped. Now let's take a look at this in a few different ways. So this whole entire move up, right? We had, here is the low, high, lower low. We broke out, made a clear market structure break once we took out the highs, made a higher low, and then we're going up. Structure was lost with this lower low. There was your lower high. As soon as you saw that structure being lost and with that lower high being created, there was absolutely no reason to go into longs on Bitcoin. Clear market structure. A lot of people do not understand how to read this. And a lot of servers you're overpaying to have a lot of longs be called out when there is a market structure break. So think about that when you are going into plays or copying plays. Make sure you're able to understand how market structure works, because that's truly what you're looking for. Yes, you could, people can call longs here for a potential move to a lower high, but if they're calling for swing longs once you have a structure break, then you definitely want to question that and see if you actually want to take that trade. Now, structure was lost, so you're basically looking for a lower high to take a short, and that was your lower high. Back into a lower low, into another lower high, and this is where it gets tricky, okay? Because we have lost the previous range low that we flipped into support. We have lost that, okay? And if you like, patterns, which I don't like diagonal patterns, here is a head and shoulders that is diagonal. And the measured move for this, not counting the wick, is a move into the 110 region. Now, reclaim here, again, you're looking for the same long setup back to mid-range and range highs. If we do chop around for a little bit, altcoins should show some strength, but tiny bit of strength, and I'll show you and I'll tell you guys why. But on a higher time frame, this all looks a little bit concerning. I know people are saying, "Oh, what about rate cuts and stuff like that?" Remember, the bullish news in a uptrend tend to be a profit-taking strategy for most, MMs. So what you want to focus on is just charts and resistances and support. You don't want to be like, I'm going to hold this because we are having rate cuts, or I'm going to sell because the chart is going down so much. You get to a massive level of support, and then for it to reverse, just like with the news, or the whole bunch of war news that came out over the course of the last 2 years. So I don't care that there's rate cuts, to be honest. I'm looking at charts, seasonality, trend, and everything. And the trend has been down in the month of September for, like what, 5 out of the last 7 years. So I'm not going to bat an eye on that just because we have possible rate cuts coming. Sure, we could get a little bit of a boost, but that doesn't mean shit. We've had no rate cuts and we've been going up. Okay, so what if we get rate cuts? Keep this in the back of your mind. But what if we get rate cuts and eventually that is a catalyst for us to go down? Okay, so it doesn't necessarily mean rate cuts are good. Don't think in absolutes. Always have a bullish and bearish bias. But if we can't reclaim here and we retest this and turn it into resistance, just like we did here, where we, see how we um, retested, closed below, and then reclaimed it. There's a reclaim. Closed below, retested. There was your rejection. Gave you a nice move down, right? Now, our levels that we need to hold are going to be one, we need to reclaim this 15.8 is a very crucial level. If that happens, then your setup would look something like this. I'm not going to give you details of where to place your stop loss, but it's going to be something like this. And then you take profits, either when you're happy or at levels of resistance. That's one. And then two, if that level is lost, you are still looking for this demand zone to hold. Okay, so I would probably look for a sweep of these lows that we put in back in beginning of August, for a potential long. But this demand zone is holding. Now this is a must hold level. Now I'm going to dissect this on a higher time frame, but before I do that, I'm going to show you guys a fractal, and you guys can go back and watch my January videos that I put out on YouTube, in most Discords, if they have my channel up. But here it is. Okay. Now, successfully, with proof, I was able to call the January top. It wasn't easy to see, but it was, in hindsight, again, good. Everyone expected good news from a Trump presidency, right? I thought that was completely bogus. And yes, we rallied from November into January, but the January, literally the day he got into office, marked the top for a lot of coins. All right. And this fractal is taken literally from here. This is stretched out. Okay. So if I were to place that at the exact same point, yes, we went a little bit higher. Okay. But the one thing that I want you guys to understand is tops usually end with a rising channel, rising wedge type pattern. You can go back and take a look at a lot of these and you see this rising wedge pattern. Okay. These can mean, top or momentarily tops. Do I think that the top is in the market? I don't think so. My targets have always remained between 125 to 135K. Yes, we can go higher, but I'm not playing, like I said, I'm not going to go into, oh, we're going to go to 150,000 or 250,000. I'm going to play what's giving in front of me. And what has been given in front of me is absolutely that this is a bearish engulfing candle on the 3-day. Here is a bearish engulfing candle on the 3-day. Okay, this gave you an 8% move down before we went higher, right? Now that is a 3-day candle, right? Here is, we can again look back at historicals. Okay, here is a 3-day candle, 21%. Here is a bearish 3-day candle, about 15%. Here is a bearish 3-day candle, 53%. There is a bearish engulfing candle. I'm not going to do the math on that one, as you guys can see. Bearish engulfing candle, bearish engulfing candle, bearish engulfing candle. Yes, we went up, but eventually went down, right? So again, bearish engulfing candles. What this tells me is that we are getting close, if not a local top. All right, and I am personally looking for much lower. And by much lower, I'm talking about there's levels that need to be lost. So before you guys, clip me or go on Twitter and say, oh, fucking this guy's talking about 93K. No, we're not. I'm not talking about absolutes. There are levels to be lost before certain levels are hit. But this has looks of a top written onto it. Okay. Now tops don't look like tops until they happen, right? And we are testing this trend line way too many times. Okay, so if, let's say this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's getting weaker and weaker every single time. Now, if we were to draw that fractal back in, I don't know why I deleted it, but where's the forecasting tool? Okay, so okay, so even if we went a little bit higher, if we are to fall, and historically we have had 30% drops on Bitcoin, which lead to a drastic move on altcoins. But if we take a look at like this high to these lows, 33%, these highs to these lows, right? Again, I'm looking at top patterns here, 31%. And if we're going to have a 30% drop, okay, we're looking at 86K. Why is that level important? Well, let's take a look. Okay, let's go back to the Bitcoin chart here. Okay. Now, not only is that important, but look at the last few times that we've had a weekly SFP. Okay, took out the highs, dumped. Took out the highs, dumped. Took out the highs and dumped. And most recently, took out the highs and dumped. Right? So there's a lot of things here that, let's see, do we have a bearish div here? Yes, we do. Our price making higher highs here, while RSI is making lower highs. So we even have a bearish div loading. Okay, there's a lot of things that are screaming top. Okay, it doesn't mean that we can't go a little bit higher. RSI can literally go to, on the weekly, to about 77 before putting in another lower high. and this can go up a little bit more and still be a bearish div. Again, lots of things pointing for this to being a top. All right. So I've said this before that this has been the hardest cycle to trade. Okay, and I still believe that swing trades are going to be very difficult. So I've been doing, I mean, I haven't been giving swing trades. I've been going in and getting out very quick and trying to compound the portfolio, my portfolio, with 10 to 15% moves, and then sitting on the sidelines waiting for the next opportunity, slowly DCAing myself into positions. And yes, these are dips that I have bids for. No, I'm not going to share them on Twitter with you guys or on YouTube with you guys. But I am slowly buying and I'm looking for impulses up to sell. All right. There are bids that I have lower for a lot of coins, but I'm very selective. No more than 4 to 5 positions at once. Take profit, look into something else, and then just slowly make my way down into picking the coins very selectively. All right. So now what I'm looking for on Bitcoin here, that was a more, and like I said, short term trend has been lost. Macro wise, we are still in an uptrend. Right. Now let's talk about levels. Okay. And why this 110K is very important. Okay. So we have our lows at that 112K area, right? And then we have these highs. So this was the previous high in January, right? When Donald Fuck got promoted into big baby wielding champion. So this is why it's bad, is if we go back into the range lows. Okay, here's a deviation. Now this looks very similar to the price action that we just put in, right? Like if you guys remember the beginning of this video, range highs, deviated back above, and then went to the highs again, sweep the highs, then come back down. Now, the first level that we need to hold is this, well, that we need to reclaim first. One sec. Is this 15.8K. Okay. This is the first level that we need to reclaim for a potential long. All right. I'd be looking for, let's take it, let's assume that this is our swing low currently. This can obviously go lower, but if we're assuming that that's our swing low, then a retest of this golden pocket, which would also be a bearish retest of this trend line, would be another lower high here and enough confluence to look for a short. All right. Lose this level, if we don't even make it that high and we reject from here, that's a possible short to take as well. Now, I'm looking for a sweep of this low into this demand. If that holds, that is a long opportunity. Wait for the sweep to happen, and then once the sweep happens, you place your... Now, it doesn't matter how... I can draw this up to $1 million. That's not where you're going to take your final profits. It's up to you to decide where you're going to take your profits and draw your own charts and place your support and resistance levels. I'm not going to handhold you guys there. But let's say we sweep the lows, we reclaim these swing lows, and you place your stops below whatever wick that is created, and you take profits over here. Okay, and eventually these levels are lost. Now, the next important level is this 110. Excuse me, this 110K region. If we close back below this level and turn it into resistance, this entire move up is similar to this in reverse. So let me show you. A deviation down here, a deviation up here, flip the charts, this looks exactly the same, right? If we reclaim this and go down here, looks similar to this. Reclaim this and go here. So this is a clear, here is your high time frame range. If we close back below and retest deviation, and this is your range to play. You have a mid-range around here, around 98, maybe a little bit higher. And then here is your range lows. Okay, if that happens, your short would look something like this. This would be ultra gigish, ultra giga bearish. Stops haven't developed yet. This would be, if that happens, you're basically your first TP, second TP for swing trading. Otherwise, you're looking for levels of support if you want to take profits. Usually, if you're going to take profits, your first one should be around a 1-hour trade. Otherwise, you're overpaying for a $200 membership and you're getting 0.6-hour trades. Okay, you really didn't think I was going to leave this video without any disses? Come on. Anyways, that is your first confirmation of a short, right? And then you have your long confirmations. Now, the levels for, 98K, when I'm talking 98K, 110 has to be lost. Okay? If 110 is lost, the next major level of support comes around this mid-range level, which is the mid-range of this previous range. This is a deviation, 98K. If that level is lost, then you're looking at 89K. Okay? And then, we can go lower and lower, but I'm not going to go that far right now until this level is lost. Then maybe you'll see me make another video. If it's sometime before this year, otherwise, no more videos from me. And that's the overall game plan for Bitcoin. All right, so you got to take it level by level. 115.8 is the most important level currently. Okay, if we do reclaim it, let's talk about higher. I'm going to remove this giant blue arc. The first level comes there, but the major level that we need to reclaim for us to go higher and possibly put in another high is this 120K. Previously resistance. Okay, we have not flipped it to support, so I expect us to, if we go over there and we have a fair value gap for all those people who love trading fair value gaps. Okay, here's a thigh gap for you. If we go into this region, I expect a rejection on the first go. Now, it could be a very harsh rejection, or it could be, a minor rejection for a move higher. All right. Again, I still think that September is going to be a red month. It doesn't mean we're going to nuke. I just think overall it's going to be a red month. And if we do go up there, that is a very, very strong short to take if we get it before the rate cuts or, FOMC for potential rate cuts in September. All right. So that is my overall breakdown on Bitcoin. Okay, you have 3 or 4 bullish setups on a higher on a lower time frame, and then your macro time frame, your macro plan is given down here. Okay, so before you guys clip me out and say he's looking for 89K, okay, get your facts straight, learn some TA, and then if you're confused or still a little bit slow and still want to call me out, expect a reaction from me. And yeah, so that's Bitcoin. All right, now let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. Now I had the stream in my community, and I said that be careful with longs over here. And I made a tweet that I was taking profit across the board, and people were like, "Isn't it a little bit early?" Whatever. Taking profit doesn't have to be about early or late. Taking profit is going to be about, are you happy with the profits that you have taken? Are you, have you made some money? It's all about making money. It's not about timing the exact top or whatever. I thought ETH was going to go make all-time highs eventually. I didn't think it was going to be on the first go around. When we cover ETH, I'll explain why. I even explained in my community that I don't think it's going to be the first all-time high break that it's going to have. But you know, when you're taking profit, you have to take a look at charts and you have to be able to understand why, taking profit a little bit earlier is better than, some missed profits along the way. Okay. So one of the reasons why I took profit was because Bitcoin dominance was putting in a bullish div. Okay. Price making, or not price, percentage in this example, making lower lows, and RSI making higher lows here. All right, so this is a bullish div, and I, can see this potentially, if this breaks out, potentially going to about like 62%, maybe something like this, and then a rejection. And then if we are bullish, we put in a higher low with an inverse head and shoulders, and then target around 65%. Okay, this is the bullish thesis for Bitcoin dominance, which ties in with our bearish thesis for Bitcoin. Now, this is a very important SR level. If this level is lost 59, the next level I'm looking at is going to be around 56 and then 54. All right. So this is why I'm a little skeptical on anything here. Bitcoin's about like lost that level that I was talking about. Dominance on support here. So be careful with alts, because if dominance continues to rise and Bitcoin continues to fall, then alts are going to get absolutely murdered. All right. Doesn't mean that you have to short here. I'm not going to give you guys short setups. Doesn't mean short, but I am accumulating alts slowly and incrementally. ETH. Okay. All-time highs in blue. Why did I not think that ETH was going to break all-time highs on the first go? Well, this is the first time that ETH is going to get to all-time highs. Bitcoin has had how many ever since? Right? We had the 72K, the 83K, the 99, the 100, the 110, back down to 79, up to 120, so on and so forth. This is the first time that ETH is going to these levels. Okay, so everyone was so bullish on that happening. Now, people down here were like, well, we're not going to break out. Oops. But this one was a clear long to take. There's absolutely no reason to be bearish down here with these multiple touches of resistance. 1, 2, 3, 4 before it broke out. Okay, this is the first time we're getting to this level. So there was perfect, like, yes, I sold around 46.50ish and never looked back. And now what I'm looking for is a retest of this level. So you have your order block. Okay, maybe a little bit higher, around 4K. It could get front ran, but there is your weekly order block. This is still in a macro uptrend. Okay, so even if we go down here and put in a higher low, this is bullish. This is a retest of the previous resistance. Well, now it's an SR point. So another good example to long. So anywhere from 4K down to basically 3,500 is a good area to long. Or sorry, not long, because you guys are degens, you like to gamble. But a good place to add to your spot bags. But what I expect, and again, see, this is why we take a look at historicals, and we see that bearish engulfing candles there, bearish engulfing candles there, bearish engulfing candle there, right? Here was a bearish engulfing candle on Thursday, led to price going lower. A lot of people got horny and start seeing, shit, dude, guys, this is from June up 127%, and in the last 3 weeks, it's up 40% with no pullbacks. I'm sorry, but $100 pullback is nothing, okay? I'm talking about meaningful pullback. The last meaningful pullback that we had was here down to 33, and that was the last week of July into the first week of August. Okay, here's another one. Okay, so I expect this to possibly go and retest 4K, which is why I'm front running it. 4K down to 3,900, seeing a nice bounce around that point, and then going higher. Now, what's a little bit concerning is the Trump and Putin meeting that was in Alaska on Friday. We haven't really gotten the details outside of no deal, right? But he was happy with whatever. So deals were made in the background without us knowing, right? Orange fuck likes to put on shows, right? So um, maybe it didn't go well because he left immediately, right? So if the news comes out, whatever they spoke about is negative, you will see a sell-off, and that is exactly when you want to buy. So that's why I'm not really looking into full porting and just incrementally buying, because if the news is bad, you will get a sell-off, and then hopefully it lands in this little blue box, and then we continue to go higher. Okay, but ETH has see that level was lost, and then we're going to completely plummet on Bitcoin. But ETH, that is the level that I'd be looking to get into and have bids all the way down to 3,500, right? Now let's take a look at this on a lower time frame. Let's get rid of this. Here is a demand zone that needs to hold. Okay, let's draw some fibs from this swing low to those highs. Notice how these lows to that high, we bounce perfectly from the golden pocket, but again, trend was lost with this lower low and the lower high placed in, so no longs should have been taken. And again, right, you can draw trend lines. The more a trend line is touched with the retest, the weaker it's going to be. There was your last lower high, made a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. So trend was lost, okay? We bounced perfectly. Doesn't mean you can't long in the downtrend. You just have to be, if you're counter trend trading, you go in with a lower size. Got a nice 5% move. Now we are at the 786 fib, which is the next strong reversal point, and this is the area where we need to bounce from. Now the bounce again can be very minimal, from a few percentages to a higher up, but again the trend is down. Oops. Okay. The trend is down. So this needs to bounce here, this demand zone for potential longs. This would be a potential long to take. Stops below that support. That support, again, like I said, could get rated because I expect a move down to this blue area. But if we get a bounce here, and I think we just range a little bit and New York Open will decide the news. But if we do bounce here, okay, you're looking for the next lower high to sell, which would be around basically this around 44.50. Okay, so this demand zone needs to hold. This would be your setup, and then you DCA within this demand zone. And then if the stop loss, like I said, can go and raid these lows. So what you can do is you can have a soft stop loss if you're able to manage your position, because we could sweep those lows. That would be a great DCA point. Or if you want to go light here and just wait, that's totally fine. these might not get rated, so that's why I would, position small. If these get rated in sweep, and then we SFP, you move your stop loss to low, it'll move your average down to about there, and then you can target the next lower high. At that point, your average changes, so at that point, the next TP point would be around 37.80ish, this SR point. But that is the lower time frame analysis on ETH. Otherwise, I'm looking for the blue box. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, you're looking for a breakout and retest of this level to go in for long. Okay. Now, just because something is down so much and doesn't mean it can't go down further. So if you are looking for clear longs, wait for some type of consolidation on support before going into long. Now, this is a demand zone. Like I said, you could take a potential long here with DCAs in here, or wait for a sweep, but it has to reverse from here. Otherwise, we will go and sweep these lows for a move. If this doesn't hold, then the blue box. Okay. Now let's talk about Sol. Okay. Like I said, a lot of coins have lost their structure. Lost it, rejected from the SR point, put in a lower high, lower low, lower high, and a lot of order blocks have been tested perfectly. Now, this looks either like a potential double top here, but we swept these highs. A lot of SFPs happen with the weekly close. We swept these highs. This looks like a double top, just like we swept these highs. Looks like a potential double top, and then further down. Okay, now like most coins, we are at an important OB. So these are demand zones that need a bounce to happen. Otherwise, if this level is lost, you are looking for, in my opinion, this order block down around 165 down to 156, and this would be a nice long to take. Swing long back into 206. Okay, so entry, DCA here, and then stop loss below the support. This is a more of a spot play. If the DCA fills, your average goes down and your risk to reward goes up. Okay, so this area needs to hold, otherwise you're looking for 165, which still is in an uptrend. Again, we can draw a trend line, right? Even if it comes back down there, another trend line test. But higher low, higher high, right? And this can come back down here and put in another higher high, higher low, and then continue to run a little bit higher. Okay, or if you take a look at the other way, the more of a bearish way, is this can be also a bear flag, and if that truly was the top, then we look at targets of $6. Okay, now chill. Okay, I'm just giving measured targets. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Now that's from there to there. You can take it from literally any measured move and get different targets. All right. So depending on how you see things, TA is subjective, but 165 is the area that I'd be looking at if we get a deeper retrace in the markets. Okay. Fartcoin surprisingly holding very well. Right? Now, everyone thinks that this is reaccumulation for the next leg up. Here is your demand zone that has been tested multiple times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Might as well call this pre-Trump Melania with the amount of times it has been violated. And again, honestly, it needs to hold here. All right, because this is a clear range that it was in. Okay, range lows hold, then we go back and test range highs. Now, is this accumulation? Not sure. Holding very well compared to ETH and Bitcoin on this move down. It went to $1. It's back to the lows from you know the 12th, but holding very well. So I think if Bitcoin pumps, this is going to be a front runner for sure. But demand has been doing its job. It's been pumping every single time we've gotten into this demand zone. It's giving a nice reaction, 50%, 83%, back down there to up there, 27%. So this is one coin that you want to, have in your bag if Bitcoin pumps, and the daily invalidation would be a closure below 73%. So having this in your spot bag for a quick 10 to 15% of market turnaround, in my opinion, is a good asset to hold. Now lose this, then this is a clear distribution. This is just a whole bunch of people shilling the shitcoin to get out from people that were again shilling over here. But this looks like a potential. Like, I don't know if this accumulation or distribution, but usually when you have a leg up and then it starts accumulating like this in everything else going down, this looks like a possible distribution for a move down. All right, so a little bit skeptical with this, but my guess is if Bitcoin pumps here, that you could see another 10 to 15% move from this coin. All right. Last coin, Sui. Not this isn't a coin that I'm looking to add anytime soon, but obviously clear structure. I know a lot of people were giving longs for this coin. I don't know why. Higher high, low, high, lower low made. Structure was broken. Okay, into a lower high. Bearish Quasimodo pattern at its finest. One of my favorite patterns. Okay, trendline rejection, resistance rejection. Lots of confluence for this to be shorted at. And like I said, this was the boss level. If you guys have been watching my videos, from 410 to about 425-ish is what I said in my videos. But this is clear resistance, and no longs should be taken around here until this level was flipped. But again, bearish here, bearish engulfing candle, move down, bearish engulfing candle, move down, lots of confluence. Usually a bearish Quasimodo, when it happens, the leg down will go and make a new lower low. So the only place that I'd be looking for longs here is this demand zone along with this trend line retest. We can draw some fibs as well. Okay, the golden pocket lies at 312 down to 303, and that's where I'd be looking for longs for this coin for a potential move to another lower high. But again, the trend is down, just like this looks very similar to this, where higher high into a low, higher high into a lower low, rejection again around this neckline. Here's the neckline rejection, and then look, it made a lower low, right? So same thing there. If we apply a 30% drop from the high there, again, would be that blue box. Okay, so if I'm looking for high time frame swings on this coin, or where to add, 312 down to 275 would be the spot position to add. And then, people will start shorting on support here, and eventually this can go back to the range highs. If we go back to $4.10, this time I think it'll break up. But no longs for me on this one here. Again, but lower time frame, like I said, there's always potential scalps that you can take in between. It has to bounce here from this order block, and then if we get a break above this trend line and flip it to support, then I'd be looking for, and here is another potential bearish head and shoulders, lose, rejection, possible short measure target. Okay, everything lies, that's 312, everything points to that 312 area, right? So, but if I'm looking for longs, honestly, lower time frame, if we reclaim the support, then you have a potential long here to stops below the wick. Now we have to reclaim it. We haven't done so yet, but probably to like 377 TP around the SR point, about a 3-hour trade. But the main trade, if we're going to take it, is wait for a breakout confirmation. Yes, you're giving up 30 or 40 cents, but I'd rather long strength and then target that supply zone. Okay. But again, the time to be bearish was up here. Okay, you're too late in shorting these moves here. Like a lot of these are on low time frame supports. So, order block there, order block here. This is the only one that's a little bit concerning, but ETH is in a demand zone, so you were already late in shorting. Okay, now it's just more about being patient and waiting for the perfect setups, having those lower bids in case we get some type of wick down. But these are areas where if you want to get into scalp longs, these would be the areas. Okay, otherwise you're late in shorting and you have to wait for setups to develop. All right, so that's it for me on this longer video, and maybe I will see you guys next week. We will take a look. Thanks, everyone.